MDOT presents the Extra Mile Podcast.
Welcome in to another edition of the Extra Mile Podcast presented by the Mississippi Department of Transportation. I'm Paul Catul, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Will Kraft. And today we have a repeat guest on. We thought he was on like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it was actually like 2 years ago. Overall, good guy, Mark Thomas. He is the state safety engineer here. Mark, it's been a while. Been on the show. How are things going? How's life?
Yeah, I didn't realize until y'all told me that earlier it had been 2 years too, but I guess that's just how life works. Also, thank you for the plug. I'll Venmo you later for that good guy comment.
Yeah, thank you. That's what I was hoping for.
Things are great, man. Staying busy, really just continuing to try to do the work and make the roads a little safer if we can.
Amen.
Love that.
Before we dive into all of our juicy topics here today, just give us a little background again. Remind the folks out there who you are, specific to MDOT, if you will, or otherwise if you want to. But yeah, give us a little background info on yourself.
Who am I outside this building?
That's right.
Very existential. So really since I came to MDOT in 2012, I've done highway safety work. We used to be a part of traffic engineering. The entire time I've worked for the Jim Willis. Obviously, everybody that's listening, all of y'all know Jim. But we do exactly what the title says. It's highway safety. That's what we do 24/7. That's our job. We operate the state's Highway Safety Improvement Program, which is a federally funded set aside or carve out from our federal appropriations that we get every year. And we fund safety projects. We get crash data from DPS. It's kind of like there's a lot of creativity in what we do that we get to go out and look in that data and try to figure out where the issues are. One of the things I really enjoy about this work is, man, we get to work with everybody at MDOT. Mm-hmm. I mean, we get to talk to the DEs, we get to work with the project engineers, we get to work with y'all. There's so many aspects of safety. When you think about the DOT, a lot of times you think about just engineering, but there's things that go on what we call the soft side or the non-engineering side that we get to be a part of. So it's bad in that when people ask you what you've been working on and you say, oh, there's just so many things, it sounds like you're just making that up. But it is true. Like we get to be involved in a lot of different things, and I really feel blessed in that. So.
Absolutely. Let me ask you this too. So, like a typical day, not so much the full day, but like, are you guys you get the crash data or you get an incident, you go out to the highway and you look, maybe evaluate what we can do to make this spot safer? Is that fair? That's
part of it. Yeah. So every night we get essentially a data dump from the Department of Public Safety's. Their eCrash system is the official record. Crash data for the state.
Okay.
So we get it in. A lot of people don't know we actually have a team that cleans that data. They go through and look at a number of elements. Our officers have a lot on their plate. Filling out crash reports is a small part of their job.
Sure.
So from time to time we may find, hey, this crash was located in the wrong place, or maybe there was something that, for our purposes, because we were using it for analysis, that we would change a little bit. So we've got a team that looks at that. You're talking about 70,000 crashes a year statewide. Most of those are, Paul and somebody's grandmother, had a rear end incident in the Kroger parking lot, but minor stuff. But, about 4,200 of those every year are fatal or serious injury, and those are the ones that we really focus on.
Wow.
So a typical day can be, we provide, so that data we provide back to locals. A lot of times when we think about MDOT, you're thinking about roadway work and making like the highways safer, but we do a lot of work with our local partners.
Okay.
Trying to help them, giving them the data so that they can pursue projects, but also funding projects. Our money is allocated so that we can spend money on local roads, and that's something that we've been able to do over the years. But we may have a conversation with a district engineer. As much data as we have, and as we've got this brand new crash system, sometimes the best thing you can do is get local knowledge on something.
Sure.
A district engineer gets a complaint, or somebody who's working for them. We went to the maintenance conference earlier in the year, and we told all the maintenance workers about like literally 5 or 6 projects we've done that we only knew about because somebody that worked in one of these maintenance barns is like, man, I keep having to come out here. I'm having to replace this sign because somebody's running off the road. So having that information has been invaluable. And I think it just kind of speaks to how much of a team effort this is at MDOT. And the fact that I think even the people who don't realize they're working, to make the roads safer are doing that.
Sure.
So,
I love that. Yeah.
yeah.
That's really, really cool, being able to make that real-world impact. And speaking of that, I know you guys work on a lot of projects, but are there some that you want to kind of highlight? What's the big, what are the big projects in the Highway Safety Division?
So we have the state has a lot of four-lane divided rural highways. The 87 four-lane program, we talk about that a lot. It was a blessing for the state economically and moving people around. But one of those things that we've found over the years is some of those at-grade intersections have been problematic. We implement a countermeasure called the restricted crossing U-turn at quite a number of intersections, which is where if you're on a minor road, you can't cross or make a left, you have to make a right and then make a U-turn. People love them. Obviously very, very popular. When you change somebody's daily drive, they just get excited about it. But the data shows that it works. We've got numbers that range from 70 to 90% crash reduction for certain crash types, serious injury crashes. So when I started doing this, man, the district engineers are phenomenal to work with. They're the ones that are getting calls about this stuff. They're the ones that have to answer when you do something and it doesn't work. But we had to kind of, as you would expect, we had to convince district engineers to let us do this. It was new. What are you asking to do? This is crazy. And we had a lot of them really support us on some of the first ones. Now we've got district engineers calling us and saying, hey, we've got issues here. I really think an R-cut would work. And so, man, it's really been awesome to watch that transformation and their understanding that, hey, the data backs this up. They're willing to go out and answer those questions or those, complaints, some with 4 letters, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
That, what are you doing at this intersection? Because they understand that it will make things safer. One of the things we're doing with that specifically is the Highway 67 project, which is going to get kicked off shortly. That was something we started working on years ago with District 6, Kelly Castleberry, Gabe Faggard, some names that everybody remembers from District 6 years ago. They had crash issues along that corridor, and it's obviously been growing since they built it. And they had a vision of doing essentially an R-cut system for that entire road, which we would call a super street.
Okay.
And a super street is really, it is a system of R-cuts, but it's giving a driver an understanding that you can expect this at every single crossover from one end of this road to the next. And we also did it so that, not just, hey, we're chasing hot spots. That's one thing sometimes we do, but we want to be there before the crash issues start. The best thing that we can do in our line of work is prevention, not reduction.
Absolutely.
Because that means nobody has to get hurt, nobody has to die. So those kind of projects have been really exciting to work on, not just because it's such a massive undertaking, but because we know that it's going to prevent crashes in the future. And another one that is not nearly that close to construction, but our pedestrian improvements project along Interstate 55.
Yeah.
A lot of people in this area know it. MDOT got a grant so there was a study several years ago looking at, we had some crash issues, believe it or not, people crossing the interstate, getting hit by vehicles in places they're not supposed to be. But I think through that effort, we learned that there were also crash issues on the frontage roads where people were going to be.
Yeah.
People that needed to get to grocery stores, people that needed to walk. And so we get, again, blessed and fortunate that the administration supported that. We were able to get that grant, and that one's got a long way to go. There's a lot of design, a lot of work on the right-of-way side that has to be done. But I think that's going to really be a good project for people that are, again, needing those facilities. But as a part of that, we will look to try to keep people from crossing the interstate,
Sure.
as we would hope that they never would do.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of Frogger myself, and certainly wouldn't want a live reenaction. Because, that is, 8 lanes? You got to get across, I believe. And it is the interstate. And
It's the interstate.
Nobody's driving 40 out there.
Nope.
No, just don't do it.
Like the TikTok trend going around, like I used to be an athlete. I don't know if I was ever even that good enough athlete to make it across all those lanes unscathed.
No.
It's a bit scary to think about, for sure.
Yeah.
No doubt. Hey, listen, big event that happened today.
That's right. Yes, we did. We had a hearing over at the Capitol. Mark attended with us. on work zone safety, a little different, a little bit of a pivot, I guess, from pedestrians and general highway safety, but equally as important, especially here with as many folks as we have in work zones. But lots of things mentioned today. Work zones, I'm sure that's something you guys focus on in your division as well, huh?
Yeah, we do. And, it is a smaller subset of the crashes that we look at, but obviously knowing that includes our people, our contracting partners and stuff, you want to make sure you have an understanding of when you have crash issues in those work zones so those people can be protected.
Yeah. We definitely heard some suggestions on things, some data, though, a little bit of data was reported. I did want to bring this here so I didn't misquote anything, but Mississippi Asphalt Association, shout out to them. They did some speed analysis in work zones and some of these time periods. I thought this was pretty crazy. So this is just daylight hours, basically, but surveyed time period, 89% of drivers exceeded the 60-mile-an-hour limit. You had 11% of those drivers at least 15 miles over, up to 40 miles per hour over. And this is one work zone here. The other couple I'll mention as well, but 94% of drivers over the posted speed limit, 40% of those, 15 miles an hour, 65 miles an hour over. And the last one here, I won't give the county or the actual work zone to spare you guys, but the last one here, 89% of drivers over the 60 mile an hour, 23% above 15. And just, I thought this is crazy. It's not funny, but it's wild. 126 miles per hour clocked in one of these work zones, 125 miles an hour in another work zone, and 100 miles per hour in this first work zone. I mean, very few people seem to be actually adhering to the work zone speeds. It's just, it's a crazy thing to think about, but as a human and as a driver, I mean, I'm just as guilty. I'm not that guilty, but, you run up on the work zone and maybe you don't see anybody out there. You think, well, I can go a little faster through this, but in reality, the geometry may have changed, that setup of the roadway. I mean, there could be barricades or lane closures. For no reason, honestly, should you assume that it's all fine to just go your normal speed. But is that something you guys have looked at too?
Yeah, and, I was encouraged, first of all, that the legislature had that conversation today. Absolutely. To hear them thinking about that. Some of the numbers that we helped share with MAPA as a part of that, who would have ever thought there had been over 3,000 crashes in work zones in the last 5 years? I mean, and that does include people who are crashing in the work zone and not just the workers, but it shows you kind of the extent of it. And like we talked about earlier, I mean, the speed stuff was truly, I don't want to say shocking, that's a bit, hyperbolic, but it was very surprising to hear that. And now, I don't work in a work zone every day. We may call some of our construction people, and they may say, yeah, we see that,
Right.
But I think it drives home the point that, we all drive in and sit in this office every day. There's no cars speeding through where we work every day. And I think a lot of people forget about that. You see people all the time on the interstate on their daily commutes, and they just kind of tune out. Like, I feel like there's a lot of that too, where people are working. And so
Sure.
anything that the state any of the tools that the state can give the DOT, DPS, other partners to enforce and kind of keep those people safe, I think that's better. So I was encouraged to see all those partners there and kind of having that conversation today.
Yeah, and without getting too terribly much into all the things, I mean, there were several things mentioned and talked about, obviously, ramping up blue light exposure, whether that be actual officers or a piece of equipment out there with some blue lights. Maybe the most, I guess, taboo, if you will, I don't know if that's the right word, but the speed cameras. Have you guys ever looked at any data or anything on that?
So I'm familiar with some of what the first guy shared today, with some of the states that have done that work. I don't have a ton of familiarity with it, but, obviously, from our perspective, I see the value in it. I also see the issues that people would have, and some of those concerns were expressed today. I think being that extension, one of the points that was made today that I thought was good is being that extension, you're not replacing law enforcement. You're essentially complementing them. We talked about that when we got out of there about DPS has so many thousands of miles of roadway and only so many officers. How can we augment what they do? You're always going to have issues when you talk about automation, but man, I think that could be a great tool in the toolbox if we're ever given the authority to use that. The other point that I think was made today that I thought was a good one was it's not about – so many times people think about tickets as revenue generation. But the real point of all that is to have to write 0 tickets.
Right.
Because if you're writing 0 tickets, that means it's working. And it means that people are enforcing or following the speeds that you have out there, which means your workers are safer. So, I understand the concerns from public, but I think sometimes that's something you have to consider and maybe give more weight to the safety aspect of it.
Yeah. I'm stop hogging all the time here, Paul.
No,
but
please, I was not at this hearing.
Well, just another thing they mentioned is just throwing these stats out here. In MDOT, we don't have a position necessarily either way on the upcoming legislation if it happens or not. But there was 19 other states mentioned that have passed some of these speed camera laws, and they saw a 70% decrease in work zone incidents and accidents in those work zones. So, I mean, the numbers, are there. The support is there, and again, as you mentioned, I totally understand the hesitation. I mean, it's not a police state, or anything like that, but the quote unquote big brother, watching you. I totally understand that, and I do. And I mean, I would be the last one that would, or I'd be the first one upset if I was improperly ticketed or got a ticket when I really didn't believe I was speeding in that area or something. So, totally understand that. I thought it was interesting. The Kentucky, I believe it was, their DOT or their state has the legislation. It's not automated, but it is an officer sitting at the beginning of a work zone who is doing the radaring, and then if you're clocked going above that threshold, that speed limit, there's an additional officer at the end of the work zone who then stops you and gives you the ticket. And again, as you mentioned, I mean, I can't imagine I don't know off the top of my head how many work zones we have active in the state on a daily basis, but that would take a lot of officers from their normal routines. So no answers per se, but it will be interesting to see what the legislature decides to do, and obviously we'll be very supportive of that and continue to help our partners out there. We all want safe work zones, man. We want safe highways.
For sure. And you mentioned, I know you're not out there on the highways every day, and we most certainly aren't, but when we have been on video shoots or that sort of thing for safety videos, it's scary. Mm-hmm. And to hear that someone's going 100 miles an hour plus in a work zone, it is not worth it, folks. Slow down and help save some lives.
I don't know that I've ever been 126 miles per hour, to be honest. I don't think I've ever driven that fast.
That
certainly
sounds
wouldn't
just
admit
scary.
it today. But
on just a straight road with no work on it, let alone with one with cones and everything else.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
No, thank you. Well, lots of good information on the safety side of things. Hey, let's have some fun.
That's right.
It's college football season. I know we haven't really brought this up with other guests, but I know that Mark is a big college football fan, and he goes to a different away game every year, and just came back from big Mississippi State fan, and just came back from Columbia, Missouri. I know the game didn't turn out, but how was it?
Yeah, thank you all for your thoughts and prayers. So we started doing this in 2022 with some friends of mine, and it's. Yeah, I grew up a Mississippi State fan. I grew up in Starkville. Like, I tell people all the time, like, you can't hurt me at this point, right? Like, the game itself is not – I mean, you get disappointed like we all do, but, it's really become kind of a tradition, more about getting to see some guys that I don't always get to see, but getting to experience different SEC venues and crowds and kind of seeing how it's different. Missouri was an interesting one, Maybe not. We went to Tennessee the year before that, and then Texas A&M 2 years before that. So a little different than those, but beautiful area of the country. I did not know that there was that much flat land between Memphis and St. Louis. I do now, but because we went up that way and then went over. But had a great time. Really enjoyed the trip. Had a lot of great food. That's another obviously perk of traveling to these SEC places. There's tons of good places to eat and stuff, and I did endure 15 to 45 QB runs at the game after that. But other than that, it was a great experience. So.
That's awesome. And so this episode's being recorded on November 18th, so we got a little while for the Egg Bowl. And let me tell you, Ole Miss fan here, I know we're 10-1, but that game, throw the records out the window. Mm-hmm. I'm worried.
Yeah. I think you do have to. It's always a close game. I don't think it will be this year necessarily, but if the roles were reversed, we would be the same way. It's like, you're never comfortable against your rival because it's such a wacky series. I mean, we talk all the time about the games where, the Elijah Moore game, some of these games that have come in years past, and how they really impacted beyond our rivalry into the college football landscape. But just a couple of weirdos playing, I guess not on Thanksgiving Day anymore, now the day after. But,
it's true. Well, look, I mean, I'm a Southern Miss guy myself, and I'll give our props here in just a minute. But, I do think Ole Miss has got the program this year. State's been doing well also, but, you throw in the curveball. I mean, Paul might not have a coach come Egg Bowl. We don't know yet. There's rumor mill going out there. I think I saw Pat McAfee today, a little bit of an interview on there. But, Paul, what do you give it a 50-50 if we still got Kiffin?
Yeah, I think it's 50-50. Obviously, I want him to stay. He's done taking us to unprecedented heights, but I've got Lane Kiffin fatigue. Dude, make up your mind, man. Like, just do something.
You realize where this ends, right? This ends, he's going to come out at halftime at the Egg Bowl on our field with 3 roses. And he's going to do this bachelor style, I mean, he's going to have the ADs out there because that's what Lane does,
As a Southern Miss fan, I would support that. I think that would be entertainment for the masses, no doubt.
It'll distract me from the beatdown that's probably happening in the game, so I'll be invested in it for sure.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, we'll just start our own college football
right.
show after this.
Absolutely.
That's what this really is.
Well, on that note, look, shout out to the Dirty Birds down in Hattiesburg.
Yes, absolutely.
We got walloped this past weekend, a little bit of a shocker there, but appreciate Coach Huff. I know he's such an avid listener to the MDOT podcast program here, but shout out Coach Huff doing the Lord's work down there. We do appreciate it very much.
Well, I think we should just wrap things there. Let's do it. Food and music question, forego those. College football is more important. Mark, thank you so much for joining us. Lots of good information as always.
Thank y'all for having me again.
Absolutely. We'll wrap things. Thank you to our listeners, our viewers for tuning in to the Extra Mile podcast. You can watch and listen to episodes by visiting gomdot.com/The Extra Mile. Follow us on social media at Mississippi DOT is the handle. We want to thank our editor, producer, Drew Hall, another Mississippi State fan, for holding things down behind the scenes. Remember to drive smart out there on Mississippi highways.